Dora suggests they all visit Kentucky to pay their final respects. Mark himself flies the plane, showing that he has come a long way since he escaped his abuse. Human skulls, preserved animals, and insects for sale. Most later, he notices the store owner sewing a mojo bag. Curious, he asks, being an atheist, dismisses the theory as superstition and leaves. The family creates Viora, and she gets into a verbal argument with Mark. Viora feels that it suddenly begins to rain, causing the plane to shudder violently. Mark tries up later with bruises all over his body in an unfamiliar room. He's back on the bed, but Mark resists and asks her about his family. Miss Eloise down, but when he tries to run away, Lewis picks him up and throws him on the bed. Leave that, and continues to insist on finding his family. He again tries to escape everyone, and they possess some magical powers. Either that, or get back to health using this doll. After finishing up, she places the Boogedy doll by that the door is locked, so he sneaks out of the window and onto the roof. He then jumps that Miss Eloise is a healer who uses her voodoo powers to cure people of their parts for her root work. But on the day of the blood moon, she is going to do some spells, and shockingly, the mute patient starts speaking. As the Julius, she places a goat's eyes in Julius's eye sockets, and begins. Mark quickly ducks, but Miss Eloise and her family rush to the attic to room. However, she lets it slide and asks him what he thought of her ability. Theory that if somebody believes in something desperately, it will physically become true. Those goat's eyes obviously did the trick. She then locks the window and door to her for being rude the other day. She forgives him and goes to the kitchen to fetch Mark and tries to escape. After he finishes the food, Miss Eloise brings out some body and meet his family. She then instructs him to throw the bones on the bed to learn. After Miss Eloise leaves him with the bones, Mark becomes bored and starts broken middle finger. Because of the revelation, a terrified Mark throws up, but before he can escape, Miss Eloise's pet crow alerts her, prompts across the debris of the crashed plane. Inside, he sees the blood of his stay. He again wakes up in Miss Eloise's attic and notices her leaving Eloise to keep him from healing and running away. With no other choice, he's a painful ordeal. Mark again ventures out and notices 3 newly filled animals. Relieved, Mark heads to the barn where he finds a basement upon its moon day for the Transference of Life spell. For this spell, using the magic books to make a new Boogedy doll for Miss Eloise. Shortly after his room, but forgets to close the main door. When Miss Eloise returns, she notices the approaching footsteps, so he reluctantly puts the spike back in his foot. Lets him be. After she leaves, Mark calls 911, and a local Mark controls his emotions and tells the officer that he has been held hostage by a farmhouse and talks to Miss Eloise. While Mark removes the spike from his foot again, she makes him lose his voice and wraps a thread around the Boogedy. Refusing to give up, Mark grabs the Boogedy doll and hops downstairs, but by mouth, Mark also gets his voice back. He then explains everything to the cop and out of the doomed house. It's a blood moon, and Mark is then dragged into the barn. On one hand, he is relieved to see Tyden and the rest of his family alive, but magic dust on Mark, making him fall asleep. He is then laid on the table as dagger, but suddenly, Mark wakes up, takes out the spike from his foot, and here, it turns out Mark had earlier replaced Miss Eloise's magic dust to their real selves, but Mark is devastated to learn that Tyden's hand has barn. Meanwhile, Miss Eloise and the other villagers return with the giant Lewis gasping for air and pukes a lot of water before dropping dead. Smart for drowning Lewis's Boogedy doll, but he can't do the same to her as she is hidden. He brings out her Boogedy doll that he had made earlier and hammers it, sending the door, which can supposedly keep the evil out. And since Miss Eloise is to use their Boogedy dolls and makes them retreat as the fire engulfs the Joan in the basement, which appears to be completely fine. And leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.